Hey, good people. Welcome to another issue of the flow. In order to go with the flow, you need to first understand the flow. And I want to tell you a little story, a little history. Back in the day, I think it was in probably in the mid 90s, I was in North Carolina and I opened a law office and I was doing pretty much criminal defense. And I came across this other lawyer who was looking to start her practice, and she was going to do mostly family law. And it's a whole lot more efficient to share your office with somebody. So I said, sure, come on, we have room here. And we shared offices. And this lady's name was Kim Wright. I want to tell you a little something else about Kim Wright. She introduced me to a way of thinking that it was all about not being limited and not imagining that you can't do something and going out there and trying and doing and failing and getting up and doing it again and failing and getting up and doing it again. And that was just one of the things that really strengthened my life. And I owe a lot to her about that. Her name was Kim Wright. And she used those same skills that she introduced me to make an amazing career for herself, going all over the world, teaching folks how to resolve conflict within the confines of being a lawyer. And, I know that sounds counterintuitive. I know it sounds like, what? Lawyers are all about conflict. It's an adversarial system. And what are you talking about? A different way of resolving conflict. And I have here today David Albrechta. And the funny thing about it is we came across each other just, for possibly being on the podcast and talking. And then we found out that we shared this mutual friend, Kim Wright. And I'm so excited, Dave, to have you here. And we can talk about this whole idea about resolving conflict within the confines and within the structure of an adversarial situation. And of course, that kind of applies to what's going on in the country with the polarization of parties and the like. So, Dave Albrechta, please welcome to the flow. And thank you for being here. And I'll let you say a little bit about what you do, okay, to start off and introduce yourself. And Dave came from practicing labor law.
Yeah.
And let's start there.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob. Well, first, thanks for having me. Really excited about the conversation. And yeah, I'm also a product of Kim's fantastic work and hired her as a coach as I was going through all of this. So she's been a big influence for me as well. Um, yeah, so I practiced employment law for 10 years here in Colorado. My wife and I had a firm together. We were married before law school and then went through law school together and opened our practice. And yeah, practice employment law on the employee side. Employment law is an area that is very polarized. As attorneys, we tend to only represent employees or only employers. There are a few that kind of straddle that gap, but it's compared to other areas, it's one where you really kind of pick your side, so to speak. And did that for 10 years. And, at about year 8 or 9, I really started questioning what I was up to and how the system works and what this is all about and who was actually benefiting from this work that we're doing. Began to feel like lawyers get a lot more of the benefit than the clients do,
Right.
which was becoming a little problematic for me. And just watching a lot of people go through this system and how dehumanizing it is and how challenging it is for people to go through litigation, and how ill-equipped lawyers are to actually help and support people in that process. And so, that in addition to becoming a father and a number of other factors, COVID and other things kind of started making me look at areas of my life and question what I was up to. And I found, for anyone that's watching, I found this book, which is called Lawyers as Peacemakers, written by Kim Wright. One of the first things I found when I was looking for a new way. And similar to what you said, Bob, in your introduction, there's this, lawyers as peacemakers. Like, what? That doesn't make sense at all to a lot of people when you hear it the first time. But it kind of opened me up to this whole other way of thinking about the work that we do and how we can contribute in different ways. And so now I've built a mediation and coaching practice, and I'm just kind of helping spread the word and having conversations about these new movements and how lawyers can change how we're perceived and how we show up and the work that we do around conflict. Which, and just one final point to tie into your intro, um, the other thing that was really bothersome to me was the polarization in the country and the world. And I kind of felt like I was this little microcosm of that. I want a peaceful world. I want to live in a peaceful world. I want my kids to experience a peaceful world. But it was a conflict between me wanting that and the work that I was doing every day, where I would go in and fight these little battles and cause all kinds of chaos in people's lives as a lawyer, which felt like those weren't the ripples I wanted to be sending out into the world. So,
Mhm. Well, and to be fair, with the legal system, sometimes it's just necessary to have an adversarial system, and from the legal system way of thinking, it is ultimately the threat of going to trial. It reminds me of a very famous Hungarian play called The Tragedy of Man. It's a 3-character play with Adam, Eve, and Satan. And Satan walks through history with Adam and Eve, and they talk about a lot of things. And in one scene, there is a cannon on the stage, a big, huge cannon. And on the cannon is embossed the last resort of kings.
mm,
So, ultimately, war
yeah,
and the threat of war, or trial and the threat of trial, is what brings people often to be willing to open their ears and minds and hearts. So to be fair, we have to acknowledge, I think, that,
yeah,
but even within that structure, you were able to find a way to address the inner conflicts and the relational conflicts through this system. So let's get into it.
yeah.
Let's talk about how that works and what it is that you do. Uh,
Yeah. Well, first, I'll just echo that. I mean, I spend a lot of time talking about that on my podcast, which is, look, the justice system is necessary and important and a key part of our democracy. And I never want people to assume that I'm implying that it should be abolished or that should go away or anything like that. Some people jump right to that conclusion, which is not what we're talking about at all. um, in employment law settings, I was representing individuals against massive corporations, and the legal system's the only way to give people a voice sometimes. I mean, otherwise, companies just unless they're really, truly heart centered and aligned and good people, they have no reason. There's no bottom line, reason to work with people. So it's a necessary thing. What I'm really exploring is this. There's two parts to this. One is I really am advocating and trying to talk to people about having more discussions earlier on in the process. That what has happened in our culture anyway is that it felt to me people really run right to lawyers, and lawyers, not by any fault of their own, just how the system works, that it escalates the conflict right away. It's running right to the cannon, to use your
and
metaphor.
to be fair, on the other side, unfortunately, there are some lawyers who are just simply looking at billable hours
Yeah,
and how can I increase my billable hours? And that's kind of hard-hearted.
yeah,
And the funny thing is that you think that you might be archetypical for most lawyers, but I let me ask you this question: what I found is that the best lawyers are not that way. The ones that are
yeah.
really good and really effective are really heart centered.
I think so too. And I completely agree. The best lawyers are ones that you can have that phone call with right away without sending letters, and just say, "Hey, here's what's going on. Can we, talk about this and try to figure something out?" And those lawyers, in my practice, I always found those lawyers to be, again, contrary to what you would think, those lawyers seem to me to be more intimidating than the ones who would yell and pound on the table and use these aggressive tactics, because a lot of that stuff you could just kind of see right through. The people who are grounded in reality and reasonable and willing to talk, those people were, to me, a lot more intimidating, to have on the other side, because you knew, they were following the rules, and they were gonna be formidable opponents,
And
um,
confident.
and
It's a
confident.
certain kind of
Yeah,
confident.
it really is, and it takes a lot of confidence to be able to have that approach, and it also, to me, kind of feels like that's a dying art, and I don't
Mm.
have any science to back that up, but, having been in the practice, it just feels like fewer people are doing that, doing it effectively, doing it sincerely. There's a lot of talk within the profession about professionalism and what that means, but, to return to this kind of specific conversation, there's this, um when I found Kim's stuff and when I started doing these mediation trainings about facilitative mediation and nonviolent communication and all these tools around that, I realized this huge, uh, training gap that lawyers have, where we don't really learn about conflict. We don't really truly learn, the mechanics, the psychology, all the juicy, meaty stuff about human conflict. We're not taught to do that, and so, the lawyers that do it are, I think, just kind of naturals, or they had a healthy upbringing where they saw healthy conflict, or something. They had some access to that. A lot of people just don't get that kind of education and background, and so they just don't know. And these little simple, not always simple, but these small tools, really make a huge difference in how you communicate with people and how you can resolve cases. And so that's step one, is really figuring out, how can we introduce this to more lawyers? How can people open their minds about conflict,
Well,
instead of,
you used a word, and I think I want to back up and
yeah,
talk about what it means. And the word was mediation.
yeah,
And for a lot of folks who hear that word, they think maybe it's like arbitration, or it's
yeah,
kind of like an almost judge is going to judge your thing. They might not really know what that process is like. So, would you take a moment and describe what mediation looks like? And like,
yes.
what are some of the human principles that a good mediator is going to be looking for and applying, in order to try to bring people to an agreement?
Yeah. Yeah, happy to do that. So, you're right. Mediation has this very formal feel to it, and for people that aren't familiar with it, it feels like a formal legal process. I've been starting to, uh, not use that word as much with people and just say facilitated conversation, which is
Oh
really
yeah,
more of
there you
of what
go.
we're talking
Hmm.
about. And it has a less legalese feel to it, Um, so, I'll speak from my experience. Like, mediation for me as a lawyer in, federal employment law, was one thing. It was parties in separate rooms. Back in the old days before, everything went on Zoom, we'd, be in two different conference rooms, and the mediator, usually a former kind of high-powered judge of some sort, would bounce back and forth between the rooms and kind of, uh, for lack of a better phrase, beat up the parties and get them to the middle. And those mediators are, notorious for saying, I think every mediator I had in that setting would say the same thing to clients. The sign of a good mediation is if everybody leaves unhappy, right? Which to me is such a low bar for how we ought to be. working with people. So that's the type of mediation that lawyers are familiar with, that we're comfortable in. I tell this story all the time, which is I would spend in really high conflict cases, we would actually spend a lot of time with the other lawyer, just simply working to make sure the parties didn't run into each other in the hallway. Like, it is completely separated. The people are separated. And so when I started doing these mediation trainings, I was really um, shocked when all of the trainings were focused on mediating with two people in the room together. I had no experience with that before. I didn't even know that was really a thing. I was aware that there was maybe some of that in family law if there's custody or kids or, shared parenting type stuff, but I had not really expected that, and I had no experience with it whatsoever. Um, I mean, if I had suggested that to a lawyer in one of these cases, "Hey, let's get the parties together and put them in a room together," I'd be laughed out of the room. You know,
It's
lawyers.
funny, even in real estate law, which, I mean, in real estate law, I think the bar's a little bit higher. Everybody should leave happy. The
Yeah,
seller
exactly.
gets a check,
Yeah,
and the buyer gets a house, and everybody's happy. But even in real estate law, the lawyers and always keep those parties apart,
yes.
until there's a contract and a deposit, and then
Yeah,
maybe they can talk about modifications of the house, or can I go visit or move something in.
yeah,
But they still, even when people come to look at the house, they want the owner to go and leave and not be
yeah,
there. You
yeah,
know?
yeah. Which is kind of this really just interesting product of, I don't know, a commentary on society as a whole. This idea that people who are in conflict can't be in the same room,
Mhm.
is and that they ought not be talking, is crazy when you really think about it. It's their conflict, it's their fight. Why they aren't sitting down at a table and trying to figure out a solution that works for them is kind of it's surprising when you really think about it. But lawyers, that's not how we're trained. So that I
And wait, to be fair
yeah,
though, it may be that these folks have tried that, and without the facilitated conversation,
yes,
without the
yes,
facilitator, motions can get raw. People can say things they're taken the wrong way
yeah,
and the like. So sitting in the same room, um, with a facilitator is something quite different, and
that's right.
a trained facilitator.
I think you're absolutely right. And there is, mediation is fairly new. 70s or 80s is probably when it was really popularized and began kind of hitting the mainstream. And my dad's been a lawyer since then, so he'll talk about, watching mediation kind of, blossom over his career, and that early on that was, you just didn't do that. And the judges would act as mediators instead of hiring these third parties. So the systems shifted and moved around, and as that happens, I think, mediation itself um, needs some new terminology. Mediation's this umbrella term, but there's now all these different versions of it, and there's facilitative mediation, parties in the same room. There's formal, mediation where caucusing is happening and parties are separated. And I think that's part of it, is kind of coming up with some new language for how we talk about this stuff. And you're right. Certainly, these parties at some point were talking to each other. Things devolved so much that people called lawyers, and then lawyers just immediately moved to separate. Um, and there's a lot of good, back to this. There's a lot of good reason for that. When we're litigating a case, you want to protect your client. That's our primary role, and a lot of times we're protecting them from themselves, saying or texting or writing something that's going to be harmful to their case, is a lawyer's primary concern.
And
But
let's not even begin to talk about what our clients put on social media
yeah,
that comes back
exactly.
and bites them.
I know. I know. Oh
I
man,
mean,
so there's just so much out there.
there are so many cases that I saw in the last 10, 15 years of my criminal practice, where there were literally full confessions
Yeah.
on social media,
Yep.
and the like.
Oh
But
man.
let
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
Well,
Go
I was
ahead.
just saying, and the rise in AI now. I mean, I haven't been litigating since AI has started, but I've been reading a lot about the discovery around AI and people getting you can get the full transcripts of people talking with AI and they're talking to it like it's this confidential friend and just kind of saying everything. So, yeah, there's a lot out there these days.
So let's go down to imagine, a
Yeah,
client walks into your office. Let me think of a scenario.
yeah,
Client walks into your office. They recently were just served with a full divorce petition, including property separation, common good. The wife serves it. She's asking for continuing support. She's asking for child support. She's asking for full custody.
yep,
She's just whacking it. I mean, everything she's throwing, all the spaghetti against the wall.
yep.
And the dad calls you up and says, um, where
Yeah,
where do you go with that?
yeah. Yeah, so in my current practice, and I'll just note, I had never practiced family law, so this outside my formal traditional practice. But currently, what I'm doing is there's two things for people to consider if they want to hire me. One is, are you guys interested in trying to mediate? And here's what that looks like. And the type of mediation I do is that we all sit in a room together and talk about all this stuff and flush it all out. And I'll note, just quick side note on that, we were getting close to this in the earlier conversation, but the the amazing thing about facilitative mediation is that parties get to problem solve their own issues versus lawyers telling them what the solutions are.
Hmm.
And what's been amazing to me is to watch the solutions that people can come up with that I never would have thought about as a lawyer, that they're completely happy with. Um, it's
Well, they are
amazing.
the experts in their own life, right?
That's the whole point of this process, right? And when lawyers get involved, we have kind of tunnel vision about, here are the options and here's the outcomes and here's what we can get, and there's all these things we don't consider because it's not our life. And so that's step one. Are you guys interested in that kind of a process? If they're not, I'm not the lawyer for them, and they get sent off to whoever needs to uh, get into that fight. The other thing that I'm now offering is coaching through litigation, and this gets to the second piece of this. So, piece one is, as lawyers, how do we help people approach this early from a more reasonable place of letting the parties sit down and talk before things get escalated too far into litigation? Um, the second piece then is, I was having all of these clients in the employment realm who come in and say, and maybe this hypothetical will be similar. The client comes in and says, I got fired and I think it was discriminatory and I got harassed and they stole my wages, but I don't want to litigate. It's not how I want to spend my life. And um and so there's this class of people, and I think it's a lot of people have that feeling. um, and I was looking for a way to work with those people, and I discovered coaching. And merging coaching in this practice is this way to help people navigate a conflict, and working one on one with someone so that they can begin to turn down the noise, is the best way to describe it. Because a lot of times, whatever the conflict is about has gotten very big in our minds, and we have all this chatter about what we ought to be doing, and we should be standing up for ourselves, and I can't just walk away, that makes me look weak, or all the things. But your core values or who you are is yelling at you, don't do this, don't litigate. And coaching is really about getting clear about those things and helping turn down that noise so that you can make really good decisions. And the decision might be, I need to litigate, or it might be, I'm okay walking away from this, but I want to walk away from this in a way that I'm grounded and peaceful and in the flow, and not feeling wound up about it. And so that's really, what I always loved about being a lawyer was working one-on-one with people. And so coaching in this way has been really amazing. I've begun to refer to myself as a law doula, in terms of I'm not representing people anymore, but I'm just kind of guiding them behind the scenes through the process. If they do have to go through some formal proceedings, and helping them stay grounded and not spinning out and losing control of their own, experience.
So let me ask you how that kind of works in a couple of different scenarios.
Yeah.
So let's say the person comes to you, the other side absolutely wants to litigate.
Yeah.
This side didn't want to litigate, but unfortunately the other side does, and so they have gotten their lawyer, but they're struggling, and they want to come to you for guidance and coaching and helping them resolve their internal noise
Yes.
as they're going through this litigation. But you are a lawyer and a licensed lawyer,
Yeah.
and we have our ethics, and we don't get involved in giving advice to somebody who's represented by a lawyer.
Yep.
So do you reach out to the litigating lawyer and saying, this is the role that I'm going to play, and I'm
Yeah.
not going to be giving any legal advice, and I won't be going down that road. I'm just going to try to support your client emotionally through this so that she can be the best client for the purposes you need her for, something
Yeah.
like that?
At this point, I have not. So, and it's looking a couple different ways. There are law firms who are opening up to this idea and actually bringing coaches kind of in-house. Um, and so I've got some conversations going with lawyers about that, which would be very much, I'm kind of a part of the law firm, but just acting as a coach. And there's some benefits to that in terms of privilege and confidentiality. Um, the the other one, I'm not, for a couple of reasons. When clients hire me in that capacity, they sign a couple documents, and they all have caps, bold, underlined letters saying, "I'm not your lawyer. I'm not representing you. I'm not giving you advice," and and an informed consent that says the same thing. And the um, similar to our clients going and hiring a therapist, that the lawyer wouldn't call and talk to the therapist about, what's going on. It's just support in the background. And so far my experience has been that coaching provides this really amazing, very narrow space where I'm not talking to them about the facts of the case. I don't want to know anything about the case. I don't want any of that information. And so I cut them off and I interrupt them, and I don't want that. This is all about them connecting with who they are at their core. So we do a lot of values work and exercises about finding out what they really truly care about, and then helping them put practices in place and actually going out and taking action on how they want to be showing up in the world. And um, I there's really, very little that would there's very little overlap, if any, between that and the case itself, other than just helping them be a more grounded individual and have clarity about, what they're up to. And what I've found is these tools, they're very general, but they allow you can they can apply them to all these scenarios, decisions uh, about what decisions they have to make with their lawyer in their case. I'm just giving them tools to take into that setting that they can use to be more clear, right? Um,
Yes. So you basically have a couple of different professions.
yeah,
I mean,
yes,
I think that coaching really is a professional activity
yes,
because what makes a professional activity? Specialized training,
yep,
specialized understanding, something that goes above and beyond what most people are aware of. Experience with people and seeing their reactions, and I think that's why we call it practicing law, because we practice it and we become more experienced, and so that's what professionalism is.
yep.
And you have a couple of them, so I do too. And I guess my question is, it reminds me of I had a class and I had a student. I teach meditation on campus, and I had a meditation student, not mediation,
Yes.
meditation.
Yes.
I had a meditation student who wasn't doing the work, and she stayed after class, and she eventually said, "I just don't feel like I have a right to be happy," and started crying.
Mm,
And when that occurred, I was thinking, lawyer hat, therapist hat, meditation teacher hat. Well, she's here as a meditation student, so I've got to use the tools
yeah.
of a meditation teacher and use meditation tools here. And so I imagine that as you're working with clients, there, it must be like there's a thought that bubbles up from your chest and it's in your throat and it wants to come out, but you, whoa, that's not the hat I'm wearing right now.
Yeah.
Do you find that happens?
Yeah, I do, and the more I practice, the better I get at it. And it's actually been an enormous relief being able to turn that off. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Coaching is all about, or the model that I've been trained in, is this really deep belief that the client has their own answers. The client, you're just supporting them to see what they need to see and have an experience that they need to have to experience. And so I don't have to sit there and try to problem solve or give advice or any of that. And for a little bit it was difficult, but once I let it go, it's become very easy and really what I was looking for in terms of I just get to be with people and be present with them to their experience and not have to try to fix things,
Mm-hmm.
which is what causes a lot of anxiety among within you know the law practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been this great relief to just be able to say, look, we're not talking about the case. We're not talking about these facts. Let's just talk about the experience you're having and would like to be having and give you some tools to go out into the world in the way that you want to be. And it is a mindfulness practice, really. Like what we're
Mm-hmm.
really helping and coaching is helping them see the monkey mind, all of this chatter that isn't necessarily reality, and is oftentimes based on future or past experiences. And it's really all about helping people be more present to their own lives. And again, is there risk of me getting called as a witness in a case? Yeah, I guess so, but I don't think I'd have anything that would help or hurt either party. I'm just
Mm-hmm.
supporting this. I would say all these things I'm saying to you, and I think a lot of it's somewhat irrelevant to whatever the legal issues are. Um, okay, this person's getting some support. Okay, great. Seems like a good thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. So give me or give us a few clients that you've had and their initiating problem, what they came to you for. And I'm only asking you that so that the listeners have an idea of, oh, I know somebody that's going through that right now, and this might be a good avenue, either with you or with someone else like you.
Yeah.
But if you got the training from Kim, I would say I would feel very, very comfortable saying go to Dave because Kim is amazing, and
She is.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
she
so
is.
give us some examples of the kind of person that would come to you that you could really work with.
Yeah, it's there's two general categories right now, maybe three. Divorce is really common. It's just an experience that a lot of people are having, and coaching seems to just be a really really good fit for people going through that experience. Um, and again, just to give another example of this, which is uh, what litigation does to your brain is it makes you relive past events. And for people going through divorce, you're also like, you become like an investigator. You're constantly like collecting evidence about what the other person's doing and building this case. And so you've got to keep your brain's just constantly going back to things that happened in the past. and it creates these really deep neurological pathways or ruts, as you go through, spend more and more time in litigation. And so coaching is this really nice balance in terms of you're really just, it's a form of brain training to help you look at the future and where you want to be going and how you want to be spending your time and your energy. And so the sense I get from working with clients in that space with divorce and custody issues are that it's just kind of this breath of fresh air to come in. They're just spending all of their time and days thinking about the case and the kids and worries and doubts and fears, and so creating this space where we can start thinking, hey, what's life going to be like on the other side of this, and what do you want to start building, and how do you want to do that, and what actions can you take now? It's just this breath of fresh air for people to have that time and space, and to be able to talk to someone who also understands the process of what they're going through, and what the legal system does,
I think
you know?
that's an important difference that distinguishes maybe what you have to offer and what any lawyer who goes through lawyers as peacemaker type training and is and is trained in mediation and mediation. I think that's an important thing, because I think the client, the person that's going through this, has a certain comfort level knowing that even if they're not going to be talking about the legal procedures, knowing that you completely understand the intricacies of the legal procedures, and they don't have to explain to you what
Yeah,
discovery is, or they
that's
don't
right.
have to explain, I got this interrogatory and
Yeah,
it's driving me crazy. They don't have to explain what that means. You got it. You know
yep.
that already. And so there's a whole, more deep, more profound dimension, I think, to being able to coach somebody and who's in a legal dispute and have that legal background. Makes a huge difference, I imagine.
I think so too. A lot of it really just comes down to, um, normalizing. I don't love the word normalizing, but normalizing it. It's a lot of it is just like people are having this experience in a vacuum, and they kind of feel like they're going crazy. Like, and so a lot of it has just been me being able to say, hey, look, this is really normal. It's really normal to be experiencing this in litigation. And just that simple statement alone really gives people a lot of relief to say, oh, it's
Yeah,
not just
yeah.
me.
And
Yeah.
I don't want you to not like the word normalizing. I like the
Yeah,
word
yeah.
normalizing. I think it's a good word,
I do
especially
too.
on the end,
Yeah.
especially on the end of rain.
Yes, right.
RAIN,
Yes.
normalizing at the end of rain. For those who don't know what I just mentioned, rain is just a simple, what do you call them? Anagram. When letters stand for words, what do you call
Yeah.
that?
Oh
Anagram,
man, why
something
can't I
like
come
that.
up with an acronym?
Yeah,
Acronym. Yeah.
acronym. So it's like recognize. In other words, when something's bothering you, the first thing is to say, "Oh, there's this thought, and it's bothering me, and I'm being bothered, and I'm not comfortable." So you recognize the thought and what it
Yeah.
does to you.
Yep.
And then you accept it, not accept it, but you acknowledge it and allow it. You allow it
Yeah.
to be. In other words, the first instinct we have is to push it away or reject it or resist it. And
Yeah.
of course, whatever you resist persists. And so it just gives it more energy. And so it's counterintuitive to just allow it. Say, yes, this thing is really bothering me, and I'm going to allow it to be. And then the eye of brain is to investigate. Gee, I wonder what that's all about, and how
Mm.
am I feeling, and where do I feel it in my body, and where does it come from, and why is my resistance, and how come I don't like it? And there's all these million questions that you can ask in kind of a didactic, in neutral observer investigator mode.
Yep.
And then once you've got all that information and you spend a little time with it, you just normalize and say, hey, man, I'm human. This is a human thing.
Yeah.
It's totally normal for me to be this way. At least I'm not going to be pissed off about being pissed off.
That's right. Yep. That's right.
I have a friend who, unfortunately, their wife is becoming got early onset dementia,
Mm.
and he's a techie, and he's very computer oriented, and if you put this program in, then it should do this and it should do the same thing every time.
Yeah.
And now she's putting things in different places, and he just can't understand it.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
his mind he keeps asking, why does she do that? Why can't she? And he just doesn't understand that this is happening. He understands that it's happening to him, but he can't wrap his head around it.
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and he was saying, and I'm pissed off, and I know I shouldn't be pissed off. And he was so pissed off about being pissed off. And so
Yeah.
we spoke about, well, maybe we could just start with giving yourself a break and understanding that being pissed off is normal.
It's normal. Yeah.
And maybe we can start with giving yourself permission to be pissed off.
Yes. It's huge.
So you're not pissed
Yeah.
off about being pissed off.
That's right.
And sometimes you just got to go to where go ahead.
Yeah, no, that just gives people so much space to just have their experience, and and I've had some people push back when I use the word normal and say, well, what is normal, and all that, and so I've kind of shifted to natural, the naturalizing it,
okay.
that
Yeah.
hey, this is a natural experience, it's
There you
common,
go. I like that too. I like
um,
that too.
so that's why I made the comment about normal, because I was good with it too until someone told me they weren't, and I'm like, oh, I guess I can see that. Yeah.
Fun. Yeah. Well, I just think that the work that you do and is really important work, and I hope that our it's an evolution.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is, and at the end of the day, to me, what this is really about is bringing people together, and without sounding too kumbaya and whatever, but like it's about humanizing the system that we've created. We've got this wonderful justice system. It's got its flaws like every system does, but look around the world, it's a good system, and it's worked for a lot of years. Um, but it can be better, and I think that's the thing that's inspiring me right now, is that we don't need to just accept the status quo and accept the failures of the system. I think we can always improve it. And look, I mean, lawyers are some of the best problem solvers around. Our brains are trained in such a way to just be brilliantly analytical and figure out solutions to complex problems. And I'm just kind of challenging lawyers to really employ that, outside of the box, and let's like really think about how we can support clients and how we can make our systems better. And um and at the end of the day, I think a lot of people want this stuff. They just don't really know where to start or how to access it. But if there are fewer cases in the courts, and we can ease the workload, and our clients leave happy, or even if we're in litigation and our clients are more grounded and balanced, it makes them better clients, and it gives them a better voice over their case. All of these things benefit lawyers, but we tend to be really scared of them because they're kind of outside of the norm. And
And law, because of its although I think it's not really a definitive, stable practice. I mean, because the law is always changing and shifting as society changes and shifts, and
yep.
the like. But there is a certain structure to it that's very comforting to someone to say, well, this is how we did it, so this is how we should do it, and we can rely on history to predict what should happen in this case, which is ultimately, I think, the law's fundamental focus, because remember, it came out of Britain, and Britain was a mercantile economy.
Yeah.
And we want our merchants to be able to know what they can and can't do, because it prospers us when we all are on the same page.
Right.
And it has produced great prosperity across things, but I think that it attracts people that are comfortable with that kind of ability to analyze what's occurred and what's happening and make sense of it,
Yeah.
and with reasons and the like. And and that's not touchy feely stuff.
Right. No, you're right.
And
You're
so
right. Yeah.
it attracts people who are, more analytical and less touchy feely. So to
Yeah.
try to move the profession out of that, I gave a continuing legal education talk on meditation.
Yeah.
And what seems like, like no duh to me, this was all like new stuff.
Yeah.
You
Right.
know,
I know.
people came up to me afterwards and says, "Wow,
I had no
Bob,
idea.
you really,"
Yeah. Yeah.
they said things. They came up to me and said, "Bob, you are truly a good human being." And and I said, I didn't, I no, it's not necessarily true. It's just that I have some skills around thinking
Yeah.
about what I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
You
I know. That's right. Yeah. And, at the same time, just to get a little into current affairs, I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
like there's, yes, the legal system is based on stare decisis and this idea that we know the law and how courts are going to rule generally on things. That's kind of being blown out of the water, at least on at the Supreme Court level right now. And these things that principle seems to be eroding quickly. For me, there was this. I was in politics before I went to law school, and there's a part of this to me that relates to all of that, which is um, there's going to be people out there who are fighting to preserve the system, and we need those people, and I want them to be out there doing that work. There's also people that need to start reinventing new systems to fill in these gaps when parts of our legal system are seemingly have going through a tough time right now. And there's a lot of people out there who just are skeptical of the legal system and skeptical of the powers that be, and so one response to that is, well, let's make a better system, and let's reimagine conflict and think about how two people are in conflict can work this out in a different way. So what people don't really know about facilitative mediation, and so one of the messages I'm trying to share is, instead of running right to lawyers, there's all these phenomenal facilitative mediators out there. Start there, before you just
hmm
run to this system. And it's there if you need it, but it doesn't need to be the starting point, you know?
Yeah, and sometimes maybe even, and I think that you can find the attorneys who will do this. Call an attorney up and say, I want to hire you only to consult and tell me whether I need an attorney or not."
Right.
And you pay the person for their time. You go in and you sit for an hour, but if they don't have a dog in the fight, if they're not going to get you as a client, they're going to give you some good feedback, which you can make an intelligent decision on.
Absolutely.
We're getting close to time, and I want to offer you a story
Yes.
um, about the work you do.
Yes.
Okay,
I'm
because
ready.
I am sure with what you're doing, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you go, "Wow, I'm really pushing a rock. I'm Sisyphus here. I'm pushing a rock up the hill, and it keeps
Yeah.
rolling back down, and I'm pushing it up again, and whoo,
Yeah.
and there's so many forces that you're pushing against,
Yeah.
and yet you keep pushing. So I want to leave you with this. So there is a beautiful Buddhist temple down in Raleigh. I'm in Elon, and there was this great teacher, renowned teacher that was coming from California to give a lecture. And so I decided I wanted to go down and listen to him. So we were in a classroom, and he's speaking, and he's speaking all the Buddhist stuff about compassion and wisdom and generosity and gratitude, and all of the traditional Buddhist things and how they interrelate and how they're antidotes to the things that create our suffering. And finally, I was just feeling, I guess it was one of those days where I just woke up on the wrong side of the bed, and I'm going, yeah, I'm just feeling a little bit cynical about all this.
Yeah, yeah.
So I raised my hand. And he goes, yes. And I said, teacher, for thousands of years, there have been people teaching this stuff, and they've always been followed by a small band of devotees while the whole rest of the world is carrying torches and swords. Why do I think this is going to be any different?
Yeah.
So he
Yep.
looks at me and he smiles and he goes, irrelevant question.
Yeah.
I go, what? And he goes, well, no matter what I say, is it going to change who you are? And if you're out there fighting that fight, are you going to get up tomorrow and stop fighting the fight? And I said, no. So he goes, so it's an irrelevant question. The whole class laughed.
Yep.
Then when they quieted down, he got serious and he said, I'll tell you the answer. And there was a hush. And he said, you never know when the tipping point comes.
Mm. Yep.
You never know when the tipping point comes.
Yep.
So we get up in the morning, we go do our stuff, and we do as much as we can, however we can, for as long as we can. And we never know when the tipping point comes. So thank you so much for the work that you do. I will say, Dave Albrechta, you are a good person.
Thank you, Bob. So are you.
Thanks so much.
So
and so,
are you.
folks, if you feel like what Dave offers is something that would be good for you, tell us where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you can just find me on my website, which is Dave Albrechta, ALBRECHTA.com. You can go there and schedule a free initial call, and we can just chat about what I do and if you feel like it would be helpful for you. And then you can also find my podcast there, which is called Lawyers as Healers, which is a much deeper dive into these questions and what other lawyers are doing and how this evolution is taking place. So it's all there.
So it's all there, and it'll be in the show notes in case you didn't have a chance to write it down. Okay,
Perfect.
Dave, thanks, and be well, be blessed, and be happy.
Thanks for having me, Bob.
You got it.